Hello and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we pick a movie from your childhood, rewatch it and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it and now you show it to your friends and they're like, What?
What am I watching?
Why this film?
And I'm joined today by James. Hello.
Hello.
And James's chosen movie is 1996's Space Jam, the IMDb breakdown. In a desperate attempt to win a basketball match and earn their freedom, the Looney Tunes seek the aid of retired basketball champion Michael Jordan. That's a fairly accurate breakdown, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that literally hits it on the nose of what the whole film is about.
I read that the film was like, it was meant to be a fictionalized account of what genuinely happened to Michael Jordan during his time where he was a basketball player, then he retired, became a baseball player, and then came back to basketball, and this is meant to fill in the gap as to why all that happened.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. What's your relationship with this movie?
Do you know what? Well, I used to watch this, I think the first time I watched this movie I must have been like 6.
Wow.
I've seen this movie so many times. I absolutely love this movie. Yeah, I've seen it so many times. That literally was one of that and a few of the films were the kind of, you know, my childhood kind of gems that I'd kind of always go for. But yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. It was quite strange watching it now as an adult because it just felt a lot shorter. That was the first thing that I kind of picked up. Like, I always remember as a kid it being so much longer. But no, this time it was a lot shorter. I would say I think my relationship with the movie is definitely because I just love the Looney Tunes. That's kind of what I grew up with. You know, Sylvester the Cat and Tweety Pie, they were always my kind of thing that I always used to watch. So Looney Tunes was something that I really, really enjoyed watching as a kid. So things like Space Jam, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they really kind of movies that I watched growing up. But yeah, I just thought, yeah.
So did you have it on VHS then, I assume?
Yeah. No, I did actually, but it wasn't mine, it was my sister's, actually. Yeah, it was. But we could watch it whenever we wanted, really.
Yeah.
VHS, I have not watched a tape in ages.
I'd never seen it. I knew of it because the Looney Tunes were randomly huge in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. They had a bunch of movies that came out, and they were all over the cereal boxes. So it was like definitely in my radar, and it was probably advertised on a bunch of VHSs that I had as well. But I never actually watched it until the other day.
Really?
It sort of lived up to all of my expectations.
Good, we like that.
In that, like, my expectations were like, what the fuck is this movie? It is so bizarre. I don't know who walked into that meeting room and sat down and pitched this and who then agreed to it. It's absolutely insane. That's not to say it wasn't enjoyable in parts. But who is this movie for? Why does it exist? Like, because they had other movies like Looney Tunes Back in Action, with like Brendan Fraser, and they at least looked like something that made sort of sense. This movie, some aliens from a theme park in space notice the Looney Tunes and want to employ them to make more money for their park. So they get sent down to Earth, where they then have to enter, like,
Looney Tune Land.
Toontown, which is you do so by digging underground.
Of course, makes
obviously.
sense.
And then they say, right, we want you to come back and be in our theme park, and the Looney Tunes are like, no, we have a right to defend ourselves before you just kidnap us and take us to space. And they go, okay, and because they're so short, the aliens are so short, Bugs Bunny is like, okay, we challenge you to a basketball game. Because obviously that's the logical thing to do. So then the aliens steal the essence of and talent of the, like, what were they, the NBC?
Yeah, like the pro basketball players,
They were all in the movie. So they then become these, like, steroid, huge sort of basketball champion aliens that, like, we'll talk about them later. But,
yes,
oh my God.
the MonStars, definitely.
The MonStars. So then the Looney Tunes enlist a then retired Michael Jordan, who is Michael Jordan and played by Michael Jordan, to join their team. So they kidnap him to be on their team, and then it's just the basketball match. match, which doesn't last that long.
It doesn't. That was the thing. That was the thing that I was so surprised by. I always remember the basketball game being so long.
I thought it was going to be the majority of the movie, but it's really not.
Yeah.
So they fight, they play the basketball team. It's your classic underdog, sort of sports movie vibes, and obviously the Looney Tunes win. And then it's fine, and Michael Jordan returns to basketball, and the NBC basketball players get their talent back.
Exactly.
There is a bizarre amount of this movie where we hang out with the basketball players who have had their talent taken from them and what they're up to.
See, but the funny thing is, though, about the basketball players who essentially lose their talent, the thing that I found so funny is that they just lose the inability to do anything else, which makes no sense.
They can't, like, even catch a ball or, like, see properly anymore. Like, it's so bizarre. The Looney Tunes, obviously you know me, I'm a massive Disney, and so they were my sort of cartoon characters growing up. As I wasn't massive on the Looney Tunes side of things because I always found them, and that was their point, they were more sort of abrasive, and you know, Bugs Bunny like abuses everyone that he meets. Daffy Duck is just so angry all the time about everything. And they were wacky, and as a kid I think I found that a bit much. Like, I found it a bit sort of like, and as an adult you do watch it and you are like, stop fucking like hitting everyone.
I know what you mean.
But some of the lines are so clever. At one point, Tweety Pie says, "I thought I saw Michael Jordan." I did see Michael Jordan, which is brilliant. So I guess they sort of they don't really use the Looney Tunes as much as I thought they were going to. I don't know if you agree with me.
Okay. In what way?
I don't know. They very much relied on you knowing who they were already.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand that. I completely get that.
And you only really interact with sort of Bugs and Daffy, and everyone else is just sort of there as a one-off thing. Like, I didn't know.
Kind of like making an appearance. I kind of know what you mean. Yeah. I guess it's very different, especially because I used to watch Looney Tunes when I was younger, so I do know quite a lot of the characters already. So it was very easy for me to kind of, you know, enjoy and know who each person was. But I guess for someone like you who didn't watch Looney Tunes or hadn't seen Space Jam, it is quite a...
Sorry, who's that person and why are they here? And like, I vaguely knew who they were, but they didn't do anything with the characters. Like, the granny was there from Tweety and Sylvester, but she didn't do anything. She was just like there. So they were just sort of, I felt like I was like, I would care more if I knew who that person was to see them on the side of the pitch.
Let's talk about this actually in terms of in terms of the acting overall. Let's talk about this. How awful was the acting? Because I remember it being such a good movie, but watching it now, being through drama school, now watching Michael Jordan and all these other, you know, big, you know, basketball stars, you know, act. It was acts. Inverted commas.
Throughout the entire movie, I felt very sorry for Michael Jordan because I always had this idea that the basketball game was played in live action and the Looney Tunes was
slotted into the real life,
Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
But it's not. It's like the opposite, where we're in the toon world. Yeah. Poor Michael Jordan must have been playing basketball and acting alongside nothing. So I think even like Daniel Day-Lewis would struggle with that.
That is so true, yeah.
Like, he had nothing to go off. He was being told all of these different things, like, oh, and then the guy from Jurassic Park's going to be flattened and you're going to need to react to that. But obviously he had, and if you don't have a particularly good imagination as well, you're just going to be like, okay, I guess I'll make a face. And you're watching it as a kid or even as an adult and you're like, oh god, that's not very good acting. But to be fair to him, he wasn't acting alongside anyone. Saying that, even when he was acting alongside people, it wasn't great.
It was awful. I sat there, I was just thinking, my god, this is not good acting. Especially like even at the very, very last scene when, you know, the basketball players get their talent back and they're all sitting around. And I can't remember, one of the guys is just like, oh guys, what are we gonna do? And it just felt so scripted.
Not even like children's movie type, because you know how like good actors always have to do sort of goofy acting in a kid's movie. It wasn't even that. It was just like they would desperately try and remember their lines and sit in the right place and look natural but failing, and yeah, it was very clunky and awkward.
Even like the children, I thought they were awful as well.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I think they were actually my
Yeah, his children, I think they are as well.
Oh, I might have written something down about that.
This is the thing though, but like this movie, even though this movie is, in my opinion, it's going to be a childhood classic, and it always will be. But now coming back to it as an adult, I think I've kind of come to the realisation that this movie, I think, was kind of made just for Michael Jordan, and kind of like,
yeah,
because at the time, because at the time he was literally one of the most successful sportsmen out there.
And wasn't he like the face of like Nike?
Yeah, literally.
Trainers and like soda pop, like God knows what else.
Like they literally like promoted him so much. So of course it just makes sense. Let's make a movie, for him about his life or what
like,
may be.
What happened when he retired from basketball? It was because he had to go to Toontown to fight the MonStars. So they come down from space and they're like kind of sweet. They've all got the little quirky personality.
They do, and I actually really enjoy that. I actually really, really do. When I was watching it again, I think that is, I don't know, I think that's why I just like the movie so much, because every single one of them had their own defined character. I think kind of like, it's about the Looney Tunes, how if you didn't know them already, you kind of wanted them to kind of have some sort of development, and even though they didn't have a development, the MonStars, I think because they were all quite defined.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It was cute. So, and they were adorable. They would come down and be like, "We want to take you back to space," and they were like, "No," and they were like, "Okay." And then they steal the essence of the basketball players. I don't know what happened to me in my childhood, but watching when they become the big sort of scary monsters, and I say scary and I mean it, because like I remember I'm coming to this as a 28-year-old for the first time, and I was like, they're making me very uncomfortable. Like they are reaching into my subconscious and like tapping into some fear of mine. Like I found them really, really frightening.
They're terrifying. They were they were scary as anything. I literally, oh my god, no. I remember literally having nightmares about those five aliens.
There's something about the way that they're designed, the way they move, the way they speak. Perhaps it's the way that they've been transformed from what was adorable.
I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
It's that moment, and I always remember it. It's that moment when it's the transformation between being those cute little small aliens and transforming into these big, massive monsters. You just see like the hands growing and the spikes coming out, and
honestly,
the face.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like there's something in there that's really tapping into my like deep unsettled fears, and it like so every time they were doing anything, it was good because it added stakes to the game where I was like, I really hate these creatures and I'm uncomfortable watching them.
And especially the bit where they roll Michael Jordan up into the ball. I was like, this is like terrifying.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
So scary. And like, and you know as well that they've like taken them away from those other people, which is really frightening as well, where these people are suddenly like, what are we meant to do? Just, it was kind of like weirdly unsettling in like a quite subtle way. It's just like, you're meant to just be like, ha ha ha, we all know it's going to be good in the end. But I was like, oh no. Fucking Lola Bunny. Was she invented for this movie?
See, now this is a thing. I never remember her, so I think she might have been invented for the film.
Yeah, she seems like it.
Because she just came in and she was like, "Hi, I'm Lola," and she was like, "I don't remember ever seeing you."
Yeah.
I could be wrong though. I could be completely wrong.
Because famously, the Looney Tunes don't have any women in them. Like, there's like the granny, and then the poor cat that Pepe Le Pew sexually harasses.
Yeah.
And that's it, really, as far as
I mean, there is. I mean, no, that's kind of it.
And so they brought in what was clearly meant to be a pull for women to be like, oh, a female character I can identify with. It's meant to tick that 90s feminism box with what she says.
Great.
And it's obviously for her to be a love interest for Bugs Bunny so he can have a kiss at the end. she walks in and she's obviously like the caramel bunny. Like she's so overtly sexualized.
Yes, I was about to say she's sexualized the moment she comes into the room.
Like she walks into the room and obviously she's like brilliant. She's better than Michael Jordan at basketball. She has her ears tied up into a ponytail and that she like keeps flicking over her shoulder in that like sassy way, and then she's always like, "Don't call me doll," which is so 90s feminism. It's like Barbed Wire, which is like, "Don't call me babe," and you're like, "Oh come on." And then of course like Bugs Bunny does one thing that's like mediocre, and she's like, "I love you."
Literally. Yeah.
I think you could have had this movie without Lola Bunny.
I mean, to be fair, you kind of made a point before, you could kind of have this movie kind of without half the Looney Tunes, really, if you had Bugs and Daffy. That's kind of it, really. Well, even then, like Daffy Duck, the moment he started speaking, he sounds so much different from what I remember.
Different voice actor.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. I mean, I always thought with voice actors, because obviously voice actors, as they get older, you have to get someone new to come in to play the role, but try and find someone who sounds like Daffy Duck. I mean, I haven't seen Looney Tunes for ages, so I could be completely wrong here.
Yeah.
But I just remember being younger, he sounding completely different to what he did in the movie.
I think as well that, so I believe it's Mel Blanc who originally voiced him back in the like 50s.
He did loads of them.
Yeah, he basically did all of them.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's D. Bradley Baker, who I know, if you've ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, he does all of the animal voices, so he's Momo and Appa in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And he does Daffy Duck in this. And I know what you're saying because I watch a lot about animated voice actors. It really fascinates me. And they say that you can't just do their catchphrases. You have to read like The Seven Stages of Man by Shakespeare as Daffy Duck to sort of prove that you can do it. I was coming to it and I was like, yeah, that sounds like Daffy Duck. There's a lot of saliva and like he's like doing the thing. But obviously someone that like is used to Mel Blanc is very, very different. Whereas I think Bugs Bunny was Jim Cummings, who is maybe I can't really remember to be honest. But it sounded more legit.
Yeah.
So was it just Daffy Duck?
For me, it was just Daffy Duck, I think.
And I think it was just like the first time he's ever done Daffy Duck, and perhaps the last time he's ever done it as well.
Yeah, I would say probably the last time because it was just so strange. Every time he spoke, I was just like, this George is not a Daffy Duck for me. You're just not a Daffy Duck.
That must have been so like strange. And did you feel that when you were a kid as well?
In terms of what? In terms of...
Did you notice that wasn't the Daffy Duck?
No. Well,
interesting.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it never really... I guess it's been years. I mean, I haven't seen this movie. It's got to have been like a good, like 6-7 years. Probably more, probably about 10 years, probably. But no, I don't ever remember being younger and noticing any difference. But definitely being older and watching it now, there was a massive difference.
It's interesting. So Billy West is Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
So he's from Futurama.
Oh, right, yeah.
D. Bradley Baker is Daffy, and then you've got people like Bill Farmer, Bob Bergen, all of these like renowned American voiceover actors, but not necessarily for those characters.
Okay.
Which is interesting that they then chose to sort of have them just for this movie, for whatever reason. Danny DeVito is flawless.
So now this is the thing. Okay, so I actually forgot that Danny DeVito was in this movie. I completely forgot. So when I heard him, I mean, I've been watching, I'm not sure if you have seen it before, but I've been watching a lot of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Nice.
Absolutely love it. And I've been watching it very, like, recently. And to then watch Space Jam and then to see him, not see him, but hear him in that, I was like, is that Danny DeVito? I was like, I completely forgot that you were in this movie.
I did exactly the same thing.
And
My note is literally, is that Danny DeVito?
Literally, I was like, what a weird thing for him to be in, and I completely forgot. And the funny thing is, he plays the villain in this movie. Mr. I can't remember his name. It was a weird. Mr. It's like I can't remember his name now.
Swackhammer.
That's it, Mr. Swackhammer. But he is like not in it that much. Like it's the MonStars that, even though they're not seen as like the villain, they're like the second hand villain. They're not the main.
Yeah, they're the ones we spend most of the time with, whereas he's sort of their boss, as it were.
Yeah. But then even then. Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating, because I was like, oh, okay, so he's in this movie, which is Warner Brothers. Well, we can assume because it's Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
But obviously, around the same time, he would have been in Hercules with the Disney studio.
Yes.
So I just thought, like, oh, you know how you do an advert for Pepsi, you're not allowed to do an advert for Coke. I thought maybe it would have that sort of vibe.
I mean,
but,
I guess it's Danny DeVito though, isn't it? I mean,
do what he wants.
Do what he wants. I mean, everybody wants Danny DeVito, don't they?
I love Danny DeVito.
He's so good. good. And actually, I think whilst he was doing this, he was actually doing Matilda as well. Or around, it was within the same year. Matilda was 1996, wasn't it? It was 1994, something like that. And then Hercules was 1997, wasn't it? But yeah, he was so good. But I find fascinating about Looney Tunes and when they kind of put it within like real world or whatnot. It's the idea that it's just kind of like a rule that's a thing. Do you know what I mean? That Looney Tunes is just part of the world.
Yes,
do you know what I mean? Like,
loved it.
The moment when obviously not everyone sees the Looney Tunes, but even in that moment when the aliens first come down and they have to go through Earth to get to Toonland, they kind of cross right over the baseball pitch, don't they? And everyone watches and sees the spaceship. And I was like, okay, so it's just like a rule, isn't it? Like a thing.
Yeah.
That cartoons are just part of this world.
Like Toontown in Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like that's where they are.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant where the kids were watching the Looney Tunes on TV, and it was just as Bugs had been kidnapped by the aliens, and Roadrunner and the Coyote are doing something, and then Porky Pig comes in, and he's like, stop, we need to have a meeting.
Yeah.
And they all go off screen. So the idea is that the episodes of the Looney Tunes antics are being filmed live for children's television, and it's like the actors have all just walked on set, and therefore and I thought that was so interesting because it's like, what? How are they being shown on real person TV, but they're live? But they're like, and it just opened up so many questions. So I was like, this is really cool. I don't understand it at all, but I love it.
I think it adds to kind of like the fear of it, really. Like, it's quite scary, the idea that it's that idea that in Toontown, cameras and stuff, they're aware of them and they're there in a sense. It's like, well, who's filming it? What's going on there? And who's putting it on kids' TV?
Live streaming?
Yeah, like, what is
Do
it?
they ever get time off?
And so clearly someone knows about this. What's the situation?
But like, humans don't know. It's not like Toontown in Roger Rabbit is like, oh, and that's Toontown. It's like Chinatown.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, there's Toontown, you can visit it.
Yeah.
It's Toontown. Whereas this is like underground, you have to go through the Warner Brothers logo.
Yeah. And break through it. It's like a completely different world.
Yeah.
It's like a different universe.
And then Michael Jordan is like, what the hell, you're Bugs Bunny, I don't understand what's going on, you're just a character. So they're not aware that the Toons live underground.
No.
It's really bizarre.
It's quite scary. And then you've got, obviously, in space, you've got these aliens and
Who are
stuff.
also Toons.
Well, the cartoons, but they're not obviously part of Toontown in terms of they're not a Looney Tune. They're not. So you've got kind of like space and this whole thing, which is a cartoon in a sense.
It's a cartoon where it could have been something different. I think if they perhaps had the technology, they would have made them puppets, which would have been even scarier.
Yeah, that would have been scary.
Or like CGI maybe, because they are, I don't know if you're aware, they are redoing Space Jam for 2020.
Really?
With LeBron James.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I wonder if and the MonStars are coming back.
Oh my god, that's quite scary.
I wonder if they are going to make them use a different form of technology to distinguish them against the Toons of Toontown.
So is it like a reboot, or is it?
I'm not sure if it's like a sequel or like a reboot, but it's happening. So that's something
well, here we are. That's podcast number 2. The sequel to Space Jam.
Bill Murray is in this movie.
He is, and we haven't discussed him at all.
Why the fuck is Bill Murray in this
Because
movie?
they can. Do you know what I mean? They can just throw people in. I feel like a lot of money was just thrown at this movie. What, Michael Jordan? Yeah, it's a Michael Jordan. One Bill Murray? Yeah, that's a Bill Murray. Danny DeVito? Yeah, that's a Danny DeVito. Just loads of money was thrown in it. And the Looney Tunes itself, that would have been quite a lot of money to have them with it as well.
To license them.
But Bill Murray
is just there as a friend of Michael Jordan.
Who wants to be a basketball player, but wants to play within
but
the
he's playing Bill Murray. Like,
well, yes,
Bill Murray is playing Bill Murray. I don't care for that sort of SNL time Bill Murray where it's like a childish child. I don't know what my problem with Bill Murray is because I love him in Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
But in this movie I was just like, oh, shut up, Bill Murray. Like,
Shut up, Bill Murray.
And then of course, so he's in the real world, and he's like, oh no, Michael Jordan's been kidnapped, we don't know where he's been.
Which makes no sense because you literally just saw him get sucked down.
And no one seems to care except for the guy from Jurassic Park.
And to be fair, I would have said he had the camera in his face, so I mean, obviously it would make no sense, but if anything you'd be thinking, oh maybe he's just like gone up. But they were stood there and watched him get sucked into
a golf hole.
Which in itself is just scary. Like, the fact that Looney Tunes can do that to you.
Right?
Like, that's terrifying. To be sucked into a hole and then dragged... Nah, that's...
Nope.
But yes, no more.
And then in Toonland you can change your sort of dimensions, like Michael Jordan uses, he figures out that you can be manipulated in a way that defies human physics, so he like stretches his arm to shoot a hoop or whatever, but Bill Murray lives in the real world, and then because this is something I knew about Space Jam, because whenever I bring it up, everyone recites this line. In the middle of the basketball match, they're suffering and they're having to bring people on, and then someone gets severely injured. So they're like, we're going to have to forfeit unless we find another player. Bill Murray runs on. Bearing in mind, we're now in
Toonland. Yep, Toontown.
Bill Murray runs on and is like, don't worry guys, I can do it. And they're like, what are you doing here, Bill Murray? And he's like, oh, I'm friends with the producer. And then he just plays basketball. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I know it's meant to be that sort of absurdist humour where you're just like, and Bill Murray's here now, brilliant.
Oh, Bill Murray, that's classic Bill Murray,
I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
it's just a bit crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a bit crazy.
It's so mental. I love it because it's like, it's such a bizarre creation, and I love that it exists in the world. But I
think it is, isn't it? Like it's Looney Tunes, like it is all crazy. I feel like it's not meant to be analysed or questioned. It's just meant just to be enjoyed. Like, oh, that's so Looney Tunes.
You've either got Looney Tunes doing things like flattening each other, or you've got Michael Jordan playing basketball. There is so much Michael Jordan playing basketball in this movie.
Yeah, and let's just discuss this because
and
you brought
I
it
don't
up.
care for basketball.
Here's the thing, I don't watch basketball. Let's just let the record be shown. I do not watch basketball at all. Never watched it in my life. But you were saying before at the very beginning, weren't you, about when you were talking about the movie and how, you know, this is about basketball and how they want to play basketball to not be slaves, and it is kind of like, who the hell thought of this idea? I genuinely feel like it is someone going, right, Michael Jordan wants to be in a movie, and he said, oh, I want Looney Tunes to be in it as well, and they're like, okay, how are we going to make this work, basketball and Looney Tunes?
Like it was his decision, because where on earth would you match those two things? Like, oh no, I know why it happened, because there was Nike adverts with Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes where they were playing against Martin the Martian. And then it sort of came from that. I remember reading that now. Yeah, so that was the sort of initial, which kind of makes sense. It's like the Looney Tunes and Michael Jordan are here to promote these new Nike trainers in like short commercials for TV.
Yeah, was Nike ever in Space Jam? You would have thought if that was the link.
It might have been. I don't remember it obviously being flashed up. But that's obviously where people were like, brilliant, let's just make that feature length. And no one went, wait, should we think about this for 2 seconds? Everyone just sort of went ahead with it.
Yeah.
It would be as if like the John Lewis advert got a feature-length film.
About the snowman?
Yeah, like...
Or the dragon?
Who would go and watch that? Do you know what I mean? Because the kids would be like, oh, it's Edgar the Dragon from the John Lewis advert, I love that. But you'll go and it'll be a cobbled-together plot where he has to, like, save the town from a... oil baron or something, like some weird shit, like some half-assed plot that someone plucked out of their ass, which, no offense, seems to be what Space Jam is.
It is, yeah.
Like, we want to push this and make more money out of it. I don't know, we'll do this.
Yeah.
And there isn't really any moments in it that I'm like, oh, that was a really interesting use of animation, that was a really excellent monologue. Like, there's nothing in it that, like, it didn't make me cry.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
There's no point that I'm like, oh, brilliant, well, at least we got this from it.
This is very much the movie you'd watch with, like, your 7-year-old niece or or nephew. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It isn't a movie that is going to have a very strong storyline. You know.
Or like, did it stay with you? Did you feel like you learned any lessons from this movie as a kid?
No, I don't.
It is pure entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I watch a lot of children's movies, and I've been recording a lot of episodes this week, and a lot of the movies that I've been watching, even if they have been very entertaining and very childish, they've at least had these sort of through lines of, like, you know, friendship, teamwork, death, like understanding death, like all of these different things. This had nothing. This had just like
people playing basketball. Not even people. Cartoons playing basketball with Michael Jordan.
And that's, as I say, that's why I think it finished, and I was like, well, that's what I expected it to be. Like, it didn't surprise me. It didn't open my eyes to anything new. It just, I love Roger Rabbit, which is very different to this movie.
No, it is, and let's talk about the difference here, because Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, I want to say it was like 1992, 94, it was like early 90s, or this was a couple of years later, and I'll be honest, like, I love Space Jam, but I also love Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and in some ways I actually prefer Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because it's just, it 100% is, that felt like it was a very thought out, like, this was the movie of introducing real life world to the Looney Tunes, like, that was the...
progressed. There came a thing from it, the nudging the lamp, where Roger Rabbit removes his hand from the handcuffs while Thingy's trying to sort them off, and he nudges the lamp, and it took some guy like an entire month to just animate that one small bit, and I don't know enough about the technical side of things to tell you what, but look it up, because everyone was like, suddenly people were like, oh, we can do that, like it was like when Moana created the new thing to animate water. It was like a huge moment in animation that came from Roger Rabbit, because this one guy was just determined to like get this little thing in. And it's 2 seconds of film, but it like blew open the animation world. And it's got that. It's got a real master of the craft. It's got excellent performances.
Exactly.
It's funny. It's clever. It's inventive. It's dark.
It is.
Dark.
Oh my god, that end where the guy gets rolled by the steamroller. Oh, it's
and he's like laughing.
Laughing.
And you put the shoe in the dip.
And you find out that he's actually a Looney Tune. It's just like, sorry, spoiler guys, spoiler.
Spoiler for Roger Rabbit.
Sorry, but like that was insane. But if you look at that movie, which is something that has, in my opinion, been thought about. It was an idea that's probably in the works for quite some time.
It's based on a book.
It's based on based on a book as well. I actually didn't know that.
The book is very dark. Roger dies in the book. Spoilers.
A lot of spoilers here, guys. But you look at that, and then you look at Space Jam, and it's just more like, I almost think it's. The conversation would have been something like, oh yeah, we did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that was Looney Tunes and people, we could do it again. Yeah, let's do it. Hey, let's get Michael Jordan in. Yeah, let's do it. And that was it.
Literally, there was so little thought. Like, if Roger Rabbit is a very detailed watercolour, this is someone using a roller to just, like, paint their ceiling.
Yeah, literally. One colour.
So simplistic and so bizarre. I really like.
Yeah, it's weird, because I've got to say, I think now watching it as an adult, the one thing I would say is this is definitely a movie that is going to be remembered as like a childhood movie, and I'll treasure it watching it as a child. This probably isn't going to be a movie I'm going to sit and watch, once every couple of years, or to come back to.
It's like never on at Christmas.
Exactly. Whereas Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I would definitely, from childhood watch this as an adult.
Introduce it to adults as an adult movie, whereas this I would be like, if you want to watch the Looney Tunes play basketball with Michael Jordan, watch this movie.
Yeah, literally.
Otherwise, don't bother.
Literally, don't bother.
The Looney Tunes humour, as I was saying earlier, is so like. There's a bit where he turns up in the gym and he's like, oh well, it's really dirty in here. How are we going to play basketball? And they were like, well, we'll shine it. We'll spit shine it. And then they all start like spitting onto the floor and rubbing it, and you're just like, this is gross. A funny bit was. Daffy Duck says something about we're owned by Warner Brothers, and shows that he's got this like logo on his butt.
Yeah.
And then he like kisses it, and it was a very sort of meta like kiss ass sucking up to the Warner Brothers.
Okay, yeah.
Like it was an adult moment where I was like, that's funny. I get that there's layers to that.
Yeah.
Whereas there were no layers to the spit shine joke. They just bang,
They just
shone.
because I get that.
So I think there were moments where the only sort of adult humour came from the fact that the Looney Tunes tended to be more adults sometimes anyway. But who is this movie for? I don't think they ever thought adults were going to enjoy it.
No, this was definitely, like you said before, like a promotional gig, basically to promote, well, I guess Nike or Michael Jordan.
Himself.
Yeah, I think that Michael Jordan.
Oh, they like did a Pulp Fiction homage at one point.
Oh, which bit?
I can't remember what really happened, but two of them were dressed as the guys from Pulp Fiction, and they shot the guns in the sort of famous picture, and it went dun 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 dun, and that was it. And I was like, no child is going to get that. It was like a 2-second reference to Pulp Fiction. Again, like, did they have to pay for that? Like, if so, why? Like, was that their sort of attempt to be like, I'll stick in something for the adults? And it's like, that's going to get an acknowledgement laugh at best.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I thought, what the fuck did I just watch? And then in brackets, Stan?
Who? Stan?
I don't know. Was Stan?
What the fuck did I just watch? But I mean, I think that itself. What the hell did you just watch? Yeah. What did you actually think? Was it? What was your thoughts going into it? What were you expecting? Were you expecting it to be another Who Framed Roger Rabbit sort of thing in terms of on the same level?
No. I thought I was going to go into something that was going to be very bizarre, have a very specific type of humour. I didn't really know what my expectation. I didn't know anything about the actual plot. I didn't know that aliens were involved. I didn't know about the MonStars. I thought it was going to be mostly a basketball match. I thought it was going to be Michael Jordan and like the NBC players against the Looney Tunes for whatever reason they'll come up with. So I think I was excited to watch a sort of Roger Rabbit-esque real live basketball match with the Looney Tunes incorporated. So then when we suddenly cut to space and Danny DeVito was there, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Danny DeVito. What a man.
And then so many scenes that seemed to have no point. Like we had to, like, I would have liked it more, I think, if there was more basketball in it, which sounds crazy, but because that's where they could have done some really cool animation and some really funny stuff. But instead we have scenes where Bugs and Daffy have to break into Michael Jordan's house to collect his basketball shorts, and they have to ward off his dog who keeps trying to eat them.
Yeah.
And it lasts like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what was going on?
And there was a lot of that, a lot of like random. We were on the golf course, and obviously it ends up being the scene where Michael Jordan gets kidnapped by the Looney Tunes, but it lasts such a long time with just Bill Murray being like, haha, I'm Bill Murray, this is my sense of humour, that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, get to the basketball match. Like, show me the animation mixed with the live action in a way that's enjoyable, not in a way where Michael Jordan is clearly in front of a green screen going...
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like, with not Looney Tunes, with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it was the opposite. It was very much, they had to put the animation of the Looney Tunes into the real world.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, the whole movie was basically Michael Jordan standing in front of a green screen.
Which isn't as fun, and you can see it lacked the charm and it lacked the imagination. Even though it should have prompted, because the sequence in Roger Rabbit, where Bob Hoskins is in Toontown and he like falls out of the plane, plummets to the ground, and he like is in the house, and like all of these, like the parachute turns into a rubber tire, and then he bounces on the ground, and like it's a really fun, memorable little sequence where they're like, look, we've got Bob Hoskins in Toontown doing a bunch of crazy shit because he's in Toontown. That really could have been what this movie was, where they were like, look, Michael Jordan's having to deal with the physics of Looney Tune world, but they don't do that. It's quite static. It's quite nothing particularly amazing really happens until we get to the actual basketball match, and even then it happens to the guy from Jurassic Park where he gets like squished and blown up, and which is, I mean, it came out in 1996, so you can't blame it, but some of the animations, it's ugly, and it's like terrible. Because obviously they're having to animate this human person. It's like if you go back and rewatch The Philosopher's Stone, when Neville is falling off the building. He's like a CGI Neville. It looks awful. And it's that, but it's the whole movie.
Which is quite strange because this was 1996, so like CGI and stuff, that was like what Jurassic Park was doing it and stuff, so that was 1993.
Ages ago.
Yeah, so.
But then it depends on their budget, it depends.
Well, they were throwing everything else at this, weren't they? I mean, come on.
They spent all their money on Michael Jordan.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
but I've got to say, I really do think Danny DeVito, for me, made the movie in a lot of ways.
He brought a sort of gravitas, weirdly, to it. He brought a grounding.
Even though it was only his voice, it was very much like I could tell that, okay, he's the actor.
Yeah.
These aren't actors.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
It was just so different.
Yeah.
You know? But I really wish they just gave, the basketball players some sort of acting lessons before going into this movie, because it was
or just didn't have them in it. As I say, we spent time with them on a psychologist's couch. There's a whole scene where one of them goes and hangs out with some kids.
Oh my god,
they,
how boring.
Bully him because they're like, oh my god, you're NBC basketball, blah blah blah.
You're not him.
And then they try and play and they're like, you suck, man. And then he walks away like, a little girl, man, she told me I'm shit. And I was just like, sorry, where's Bugs Bunny?
Yeah, literally.
I thought I came here for Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan. Like, why am I hanging out with Patrick Ewing?
And all these other people.
Some bullshit, like, come on, man. You had you did have a cool concept, like, I was excited to watch Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes play basketball.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like fun.
But then it's this idea, like, it's hardly in the movie. I remember it being in it a lot more. I gotta say, the one thing that I always remember about Space Jam, whenever people ever say, oh, what's the one thing you remember about Space Jam? For me, I don't know why, but it's just the sequence of them coming onto the basketball court.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
When they all introduce them all, it has the music, I always remember when they come on. It's all I ever remember, and the funny the juice, the Michael Jordan juice was just water.
Yeah,
always remember those two bits.
They're well thought out. They're fun. They're a good use of animation. I thought that was brilliant. So he basically just it's Bugs Bunny's idea.
Yeah.
He fills Michael Jordan's water bottle as a tube character with water, and it says like Michael Jordan's special stuff, and everyone has to sip from it. And it's like in that bit in Harry Potter where he pretends to give Ron the liquid luck, and then he doesn't. So they just have a boost of confidence and they play really well for a while. And then when they hand the bottle to the guy from Jurassic Park, it has to become a human prop, but they've made efforts to make it look cartoonish, which was really cool. And I'm like, do more of that. Fuck that bullshit with the dog.
That
more
was
of that stuff. So if they are gonna do this one with LeBron James, and you're listening, producers, like focus on what people really enjoyed and remember about Space Jam, which was the interaction between Toon and the human, and the lessons, because that's probably the only lesson you learn, where it's like believe in yourself, it's inside you the whole time, kind of thing. Because otherwise it's just like, the stakes aren't even that high. He's our main character, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And he's the hero. He's not gonna.
Well, nothing's gonna really happen to him. At the end of the day, if he loses, I guess it comes to the point, isn't it, where they make the deal with Danny DeVito.
It's not until the third act that Michael Jordan's like, if we win, take me instead of the two, or something. Is that
it was no. I think it was, if you'll raise the stakes. If I win, then not only are they not slaves, but you have to give the talents back to the basketball players.
Yes.
But if you win, then you also get me.
right?
So I think he would still get the Looney Tunes, but just the added layer. Yeah, he'd get Michael Jordan.
Which doesn't happen until like 10 minutes to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So you don't care, like.
Yeah.
And like, I know it's a dumb movie about Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes playing basketball, but make us care. Don't just make us care relying on the fact that we like the Looney Tunes and we don't want them captured in it.
When you think about like how movies, just stories in general are made, they always have a structure, don't they? They have like, the beginning, and then you get to the climax, and then you'll have the moment where you think all's going wrong and it all has failed, and then it picks back up and then there's something happens.
Sports movie. There's so many tropes that they could have done that they didn't.
Yeah.
And
But that wasn't in this movie. Like it got to the point. I think the climactic point where you thought all was lost was when they were all asking for the special stuff, the water, and it was like there's none left, and it's like, yeah, but can you get us some? We're all battered, we're all bruised, and then he literally resolves it, and he's just like, no, guys, you had it all along, and then that was kind of it, and then they're all like, great.
No, they're not even like great. He goes, guys, it was just water. Like you had it inside of you all along. That was you out there on the pitch. You just got to have your confidence back. And they go, well, can we have the juice anyway?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, like they haven't even learnt the lesson, which makes sense because they're Looney Tunes. Like they're not going to be the ones learning a lesson here. In the same way that, like in Roger Rabbit, Bob Hoskins is our main character, and he's gone through loss, and he has a hatred towards these things.
Looney Tunes, yeah, and then he has a love for them at the end. You see a development,
progression, and you see and you understand why he's like the way he is. Michael Jordan has given up basketball. That's the stakes where they're like, oh no, is he going to be able to play basketball? Well, yes, he is. Done. That's ticked. And then they're like, 10 minutes towards the end, oh, take me instead, and you're like, I don't care at this point.
I'm sorry, can we just Bill Murray? Let's bring Bill Murray, because he essentially saves the day in a weird way. Bill Murray, really?
Literally, it's a movie about Looney Tunes and Michael Jordan playing basketball.
And remember,
and Bill Murray is the savior.
Yeah, and the MonStars are all got the talents of all these professional basketball players. Yet Bill Murray, sounds bad, but the idea of like he's not a basketball player. He's not built to be a basketball player.
Yeah.
He's not tall at all. Yet he comes in and just absolutely
wipes the floor
with his net.
And I'm sure that's meant to be funny because it's like, haha, look, Bill Murray is winning. Who'd have thought? And it's like, you haven't planted that enough. But as I say, I knew that Bill Murray came on near the end of the match. I didn't know that he had been planted in the movie beforehand. So he's not just random Bill Murray, which perhaps would have been funnier if he hadn't been in the movie at all until that point.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because then it really would have been absurdist, like a cameo.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh look, it's Michael Jordan's friend, Bill Murray.
Yeah, like he's an established character.
Who's managed to make his way to Toontown somehow. Because that's what begs the question. People are like, how did you know that this place existed to be able to get here, to be able to make your way here, to be able to find where we are, to be able to know what's going on? And all he does is say, haha, I'm friends with the producer.
Yeah.
Like that meta, or it's a movie. There is a brilliant line that's also quite meta where when Bill Murray does walk on, Danny DeVito said, I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this picture. And like that got a laugh from me one of the few times.
One of the few. Like on one hand,
I can
how
many times I laughed, and that was one of them. And then Bill Murray says, well, the producer's a friend of mine, and Daffy Duck goes, well, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of funny, but as I say, I think it would have been funnier. We would have believed that Bill Murray could have randomly turned up more if we hadn't watched him watch Michael Jordan get pulled into the golf hole. I think they just didn't really think it through in terms of how to make it a movie that makes sense and why kids should care, because they knew that they would make money from it. They knew they weren't going to get a sequel. They didn't.
This
really
movie wasn't out there to get an Oscar. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't.
And like, movies don't have to be, but even in the Simpsons movie, this beloved family that we followed for 20 years, they still managed to make us care about the stakes within the movie. And be funny and rely on stuff we knew, but also open up to a new audience at the same time. This movie didn't try to do anything.
Like you said, I mean, it's not really to bring new audiences in with the Looney Tunes, because they didn't really introduce each Looney Tune. They were just kind of there.
They were assuming that
apart from apart from Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, I guess, the big ones. And then Michael Jordan, he's playing basketball. I don't know, it just felt like a really, and now that you think about it, it feels like a really weird kind of like memoir, how you said to Michael Jordan, or like for Michael Jordan, about his time between. It's kind of weird.
And even if that was what they were going for, like, oh, this is the fictionalized account of what happened when Michael Jordan retired from basketball, they still didn't push that, really. They were just sort of like, oh, yeah. I'm glad I've seen it.
Good, well, because you were saying to me, weren't you, about how this was a movie that was kind of been in the back,
I was
needed to watch it.
On my radar for all my life. Like, I've always known about it, but I've never thought to sit down and watch it. Probably because I was like, I'm gonna hate it. Because like, I'm not a kid anymore, and I think you had to have been to have appreciated and accepted it for what it is.
I agree. This movie needs to stay in the 90s.
But it's not going to, because in 2021 we're going to have one with LeBron James.
Which, I'm going to be honest, I really hope it's a lot better. You know, I don't know.
They take the opportunity, as we've said, to sort of expand on what was good in this one, and hopefully bring a new audience to Looney Tunes.
And I just want to say, like, I am definitely not hitting this movie at all. This is all the stuff that's kind of come to light watching it as an adult. This movie, for me, as a child,
Still a gem.
yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I always remember it in the way, you know.
And that's really good, because as much as I've been able to sit here and be like, tear it apart, fundamentally children enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So like, what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. What hell do you know?
Like, kids enjoyed it. Kids found it fun, and I guess it was a really easy watch as well.
Yeah.
Like, whereas you watch something like Tarzan, where you've got like the hanging body of Clayton silhouetted in a thunderstorm, and they're all learning the morals, and the animation is so deep and thought out. Sometimes you just want to put on like brain popcorn, and that's what this is.
Literally.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's all on YouTube if you want to have a rewatch yourself. It's fairly short.
Yeah, what, an hour and a half, hour 40?
Not even.
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, anything else to say about Space Jam?
No, I think we kind of covered a lot of it, actually.
Yeah.
I'll just say, if you are going to watch the movie, you know, definitely be prepared for the MonStars. They are
so
terrifying.
scary.
They're terrifying.
I don't know what it is about.
Which was your favourite? Did you have a favourite?
The little pink one that was like.
Oh yeah, with the high voice, yeah. I don't know. I was at the green one. I think it was because it was the scary one with the fire breathing.
Yes, yeah. Because the pink one gets to be the like really short guy.
Yeah.
As well. Because like all the others would be like, we're gonna beat you up, and the
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're going to beat you up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's cute. I like it. It's the pink one. You'll have a favourite. They're like the Spice Girls.
Literally, everyone has a favourite Spice Girl. Everyone does.
Mine was Jerry. Who was yours?
I love Scottish Spice now.
Nice.
Yeah. I love. There we go, 90s throwbacks.
But thank you so much for coming on and choosing Space Jam.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad that you watched it.
Yeah, I'm glad
First
that I
time.
watched it.
It's done now, you got it.
Yeah, tick that off that box.
Finish my polish.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything you want to plug? Where can we find you on social media?
Yes, so I have Instagram. My Instagram is James Hoyles, and that's the same for my Twitter. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. James Hoyles. Hoyles is spelled Hoyles, just so you're aware.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next time on Why Let's Film. Bye.
We watched the film and we talked about it, but now it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back again with another movie that makes you wanna ask why.